Oh, this is a question about testing. So Juan wants to know how many days before an intracellular nutrition test must one stop taking oral supplements? One, if they're doing true intracellular testing, you don't have to stop taking supplements. The supplements that you're taking will not skew the results of an intracellular test. Mary wants to know what test to take to find out if you're zinc deficient. The best type of test, in my opinion, there are a couple of different kinds. One would be intracellular using lymphocytes. So intracellular using lymphocytes, which is a type of white blood cell. If you don't have access to that, if your doctor's never heard of it, you can do RBC zinc levels. If you run serum zinc, you're going to be disappointed. Well, you're not going to be disappointed. You're going to get a misrepresentation of what your actual zinc storage levels are. Zinc in the serum is not a real accurate representation for measuring zinc health or zinc load or zinc levels in the body. So again, these two are probably some of your best ways. Now, this is kind of an off way to do it, but it's not 100% accurate either. And that is, if you've got white spots on your fingernails, that can be a zinc deficiency, although it can be other mineral deficiencies as well. So again, it's not really a tried and true cut in stone way to say, okay, I need more zinc or I need to push more zinc. But because zinc is relatively safe to take, depending on your weight, adult males can take 100 milligrams a day real easy at 150 if they're 150 pounds or more, whereas females 50 to 75 milligrams, depending on your weight, might be a better dosing or might be a better level to use supplementally. But really safe to take and very effective. The worst that you really have to worry from zinc, if you're keeping the doses realistic, is that it can upset the stomach if you take it on an empty stomach. Let's see here. Not a question. There's a question in that. So Beauty says, thank you very much. I did my first C-flush. We talked about that last week for the first time in a long time, and I was pain-free. Love to hear that. I love to hear those anecdotal stories of people using nutrients to get pain-free. Can I take all my vitamins at the same time? Depends on what you're taking. I mean, usually yes. Vitamins generally don't tend to interfere with each other. If you're taking them simultaneously, it's usually okay. But if you've got a specific example you'd like to ask about, I can entertain that question a little bit better. Let's see. Virginia from the UK. How you doing, US? I think we're doing okay. I think I think we're doing just fine. I think the reporting of COVID-19 is exaggerated, and I think there's some media lying that's happening. And I don't think the mortality rate is quite as high as what everybody is being told. And I don't think the hospitals are quite as busy as what everyone's being told. That being said, I think we're doing okay. I think most people want to avoid getting ill. And I think a lot of people actually are tired of being sequestered into their homes. And there's a stress that goes along with that. But I think beyond that, I think we're doing pretty good. Elizabeth says, if a mandatory vaccine is rolled out, how best to protect your body from the danger of the vaccine? No such thing as a mandatory vaccine. I mean, if you're in the U.S., you've got freedoms, and those freedoms mean that mandatory vaccine shouldn't be something that should be able to be passed. Now, I know many of you may be nervous or scared that that's something that they're going to try to enforce, but we still have our rights. And remember, the mandatory vaccine, they would have to, before passing a mandatory vaccine, they would have to prove safety, which is in the time frame that they're trying to get that thing done. There's no way that they're going to be able to prove any type of safety. As a matter of fact, the science on this whole thing is, COVID-19, just the PCR testing alone, if we're talking about science, there's an 80% false positive rate on these tests, where people, and this is one of the reasons why the numbers have been exaggerated in the U.S., is that the testing is not all that accurate. So first of all, we don't have accurate testing to really be able to determine whether or not somebody actually has COVID-19 or some anomaly that looks like COVID-19. So if the science is a little iffy there, then the science around the safety, that's going to take years to determine. I mean, an average vaccine to determine any kind of safety is going to take 5 to 6 years of research to really get it to be to a point where safety is going to be either not in question or in question. And then if it is in question, then it's back to the drawing board for the researchers. So I don't know. I just don't think they're not going to put that shot in me. I can tell you that. I'll go down kicking and screaming, but I'm not going to take a shot. And my advice to you is, if you believe the way I believe, you wouldn't want to take it either. And don't let somebody force something into your body. It's your body. It's the one, sacred thing that you have on this planet and this earth. It's the one thing that you own, and you should never let anybody do anything to it that could potentially hurt it. And that includes injecting a non-tested, non-safety proven vaccine. There's just no way a vaccine can be rolled out that quickly and be proven safe and effective. You got to look at history. Those that don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. Look at vaccine safety in the past. A lot of the vaccines that were rolled out in times of mass panic had massive problems. There were people that were dying from getting the vaccines, people that were getting tremendous side effects from vaccines. So you don't really want to just roll over and let the government or anyone else or any doctor say that you have to get this vaccine in order to protect yourself from a disease that's killed less people. I mean, arguably, this disease has not killed a tremendous amount of people. I mean, it's killed some people, but let's think about it in perspective of what aspirin and opiates killed. Last year, aspirin and opiates combined killed almost 40,000 people. To date, that's more people than have died from COVID-19. So you don't see the government pulling those drugs off the shelf. So I think this is being overblown, and maybe there's some private or hidden agendas behind this. I don't know. I don't want to turn this show into a conspiracy theory speculation show, but I just want to say that if somebody's trying to force a vaccine on you, you've got to stand up and you've got to own yourself and own your rights to say what does and what does not go into your body. Is vitamin D naturally in milk? Sam wants to know. Yes, if it's breast milk, it is. It's naturally in breast milk. Is there much vitamin D in cow's milk? No. By the time you pasteurize it, homogenize it, there's not a whole lot left. That's why they fortify the milk. They fortify it with added vitamin D, but the naturally occurring levels are not that high in milk when you buy it at the grocery store. So Karen says, Dr. Osborne, currently taking Plaquenil for Sjogren's. Would increasing zinc with quercetin and EBCG allow me to possibly reduce the dosage? How much zinc recommendation and when during the day? So Karen, I can't give you specific advice like that. That I don't want you to construe what I'm doing as medical advice. I mean, the question would be better served with your doctor directly if they're even willing to talk about it. But my advice is, if you've got a rheumatologist that doesn't respect nutrition, you need to find a doctor who will respect and have that nutritional conversation with you. Let's see here. If things get serious and we want to avoid intubation due to high death rate, by the time you're going on a tube, you're probably not going to make it, at least statistically speaking. What else is there other than H and A and zinc? There's vitamin C. Vitamin C, actually, the research on that, go back and watch last week's show. I talked in depth about the research that's going on right now with vitamin C and all of the wonderful impact that it's having. But there's vitamin, and again, ask your doc, but vitamin C is a potential option for IV use and even high dose oral use. There's some pretty good research, not necessarily on COVID, but on viral infection, that shows high dose oral vitamin C reduces ICU, intensive care unit time, by as much as almost 10%. And that's just at lower doses, at 6 milligrams or less of a dose. So many of you are currently probably taking, anywhere upwards of 10 plus grams of vitamin C right now in this scare. Let's see. Is there any side effects for you? For what? So I'm not sure about that question. Okay. Kimberly wants to know if you have an aspirin allergy. If I were you, I would look into food intolerance and sensitivity natural. Okay, so that's not a question either. What do I think about ozone therapy? I think I don't have experience actually using ozone therapy, so I can't really comment on ozone and COVID. But I know there are some really great doctors using it with pretty good success. some of my colleagues. So, I'm not opposed to it. I think the question would be better served asked to those particular doctors, though. Cindy wants to know, I heard that quinine and tonic water in conjunction with zinc helps the zinc to get into the cells, therefore blocking viruses from replicating. There's no research that shows that. There's some internet theory and conjecture on quinine and tonic water, but you got to look at the dose of quinine and tonic water. First of all, quinine is a highly toxic substance, so I don't really recommend using it at any level, in any doses that are very high, especially when you have research that shows that these guys are zinc ionophores anyway, so why not use them instead? That would be kind of the way I would look at going toward it. But tonic water to get quinine, I don't think you're going to have to drink a lot of tonic water probably to have any type of real effect. Okay. Let's see here. So this question coming in from Lady IFK. I just received my immune bundle. I fast on a 20-hour, 4-hour regimen. Can I take all my supplements during my 4-hour eating window? And which one of the supplements in the bundle don't break a fast? Well, they'll all break a fast. If when you break a fast, it's you're injecting something that your GI tract has to deal with, unless you're just talking about water. So, yes, you can take them all within the 4-hour window of eating. That's perfectly fine. Let's see here. The logistics of securing IV vitamin C or IV ozone or hyperbaric chamber are virtually nil. This is why you have to have a good relationship with a good doctor. I mean, I've said this a number of times, and those of you, you hear me every week, and maybe some of you are new to the show, but I say this all the time, which is you've got to have a good doctor on your team who can do things like this. And it's not so much important that you have a good doctor when you're healthy, but it's good to have a relationship with the doctor, because when something like this happens, yes, the likelihood that you're going to be able to get in and make it happen when everybody like myself is super busy, we're super swamped, it's harder. It's harder to get these things done. So you plan for times of emergency and disaster and times of non-emergency or non-disaster so that you can be ready for it if it does happen. So, it's really hard right now to get in to see somebody who's going to be able to potentially give you IV vitamin C or ozone because their lines are backed up. Let's see here. Juan asked me why I won't pursue a medical doctor degree to work in Mayo or Cleveland Clinic. Why would I want to do that, Juan? Going back to school for another 4 years to spend, $250,000 to go back to school for 4 years so that I can digress my education doesn't make any sense. So I'm just going to keep going the way I am, but I appreciate the commentary. What about the carnivore diet and helping with COVID? It's low in inflammation, factors are high in zinc. Thanks. There's no research showing that carnivore is helpful. I think carnivore can be helpful for some people. In my experience, carnivore is very helpful for people who don't tolerate vegetables that generally are FODMAP intolerant or oxalate intolerant. Carnivore diet can be very effective for those individuals as they restore and repair and heal their gut. But I don't think that going carnivore, if you're not already, is necessarily going to be something that is going to magically make you COVID proof. No diet, I think, is going to do that. I think all of your behaviors, your sleep, your sunshine, your exercise, your diet, your overall quality of choices that you make on a regular basis are the best defense that you have. What do I think about some of the other medications that are being tried on coronavirus patients? Look, I think the best thing that can be done is what I've already talked about last week, which is the high doses of vitamin C. I think there's some doctors that are using a mixture of high-dose vitamin C, hydroxychloroquine with hydroxycortisone that are having better results than the standard people in the ICU that are being intubated and given forced air. I think there are different parameters to this particular virus that are showing that the lungs themselves don't do well with forced air because of the issue is not necessarily a lack of oxygen. The issue, and we haven't really talked about this, but the issue, or what they're finding to be the issue, is that the red blood cells contain a molecule or a protein called hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is like a cage. And so hemoglobin, in this sense, what's happening is the virus itself is damaging the hemoglobin, releasing free iron. And the iron is very oxidative, and so it sucks up all the antioxidants because iron is very oxidative, so it damages tissue. But the problem is you get a bunch of red blood cells that don't work. And so remember, the job of a red blood cell is to carry oxygen and to drop off carbon dioxide in the lungs. And so if you have red blood cells that don't work, it's like having a delivery truck, that's supposed to deliver groceries to the grocery store, but you don't have the stock, the people that run the stock to fill the truck. So the truck gets delivered, but the truck is empty. There's no oxygen, or there's no groceries in the truck, so to speak. And so what you're left with is oxygen deprivation, not because there's not enough oxygen coming in, but because there's no capacity to carry or deliver the oxygen. So the preservation of the red blood cell is a key element here. And one of the ways that we can preserve the functioning of the red blood cell is to protect the membrane around the red blood cell and to prevent viruses from penetrating. So how do we do that? In large part, we do that with antioxidant capacity. That's one of the reasons why they're theorizing that vitamin C works so well as an agent to prevent this problem. And so the medicines themselves, the drugs, don't act in the same type of fashion. I think your best bet is antioxidants, and particularly IV nutrition if you get into a bind with COVID-19. Hot Nancy says, you and Sarah G would make great friends. Promise. We are good friends, Nancy. Sarah and I, we go way back. We go back about 10 years. We've been friends. Let's see. Functional med docs are offering telemedicine only. They expressly ask folks with symptoms to stay home. Yeah, that's true. I mean, but there are centers where they do administer IVC and ozone therapy. And that's where, you've got to have a good relationship with a doctor who has access to those things for the times like this when you might need it. Does magnesium help prevent a cytokine storm? No nutrient really helps prevent a cytokine storm once it starts. Cytokine storm is this free radical damage. So the thing about iron creates these cytokine storms. Free, non-bound iron creates all kinds of damage. And by the time you're going into a cytokine storm, there's no nutrient that you're going to be able to take that's going to have any kind of major impact outside of IV nutrition. And that goes back to IV vitamin C. My best advice that I could give, if you're trying to just keep your immune system strong and be as preventative from a cytokine storm perspective, is that higher dose levels of vitamin C right now, to give your body everything plus extra. Let's see here. C, quercetin, D, zinc, NAC, DHA, NAD, ashwagandha, L-arginine. Ashwagandha and L-arginine. So your question whether or not ashwagandha and L-arginine are something you should add to your arsenal, Greg. I'm not sure what your question is there, but L-arginine acts as a vasodilator, as an amino acid that's a precursor to nitric oxide, which is things that increase nitric oxide are showing to be helpful with COVID. And so vitamin C also helps with nitric oxide. L-arginine potentially could, theoretically, but should you add that to your repertoire of things? There's just not enough research to say yes, but if you're taking supplements and you add a few more, I don't think it could hurt you. Do we need to take copper with certain doses of zinc? Depends. So it depends on how long you're taking the zinc. If you're taking it long term, it's not a bad idea to be on some copper as well. Most studies show that the zinc copper ratio is about 7.5 to 1, meaning that's zinc 7.5 milligrams to 1 milligram of copper. So 7.5 to 1 is the ratio to where you try to keep that balance the best that you can. But if you're doing short-term duration of zinc supplementation, not so much. Can that cause headaches? It can, especially in allergy season, it can potentiate headaches, especially as it's helping drain the sinuses. Because again, it's one of its functions, but it's pretty rare to see somebody develop a headache over NAC. There may be an ingredient in your NAC that you're reacting to, and it may not be the NAC itself. So Shelly wants to know about, as far as tonic water, Shelly, I don't recommend tonic water, but as far as zinc, Ultra Zinc is what I recommend. I don't even know that we have it in stock. To be honest with you, I think we're a couple of weeks away from having it in stock. But if you are wanting to get it and kind of get on our waiting list, so to speak, I would certainly encourage you to do that if you don't have any and can't find any. And then as far as vitamin C, we have something called Detox C that you can look for. We have it in powder or pill form. As far as kidney stones, there's so much false information about vitamin C and kidney stones. Vitamin C, unless you have a major oxalate sensitivity, vitamin C does not generally tend at all to increase the risk for the development of kidney stones. So that's kind of one of those nutritional myths that's been put out there and perpetuated by, I'll call it pseudoscience. Let's see here. Do I think NAC is helpful to take? Barb, did you see our show on NAC the other day? Well, the other day, it's been a couple weeks now. Let's put up the link, if we can, Mel, to our COVID resource page. Folks, if you haven't been here, this is kind of the research page we've been accumulating over the past several months. And to date, there are like 7 or 8 hours of video material there that you can go and watch. We've got special videos on NAC and quercetin. We've got videos on vitamin C. We've got videos on the top supplements that we recommend to support immune function right now. That's all there, and it's all there for you, free of charge. There's no access. You just got to go check out that URL. So a lot of you are asking. I'm not answering your question because of the depth that I would have to go into. It would take me 20 or 30 minutes to answer some of these questions accurately. But we've done the shows in the past that I want to lead you to get those answers. Marcia says, why are none of the medical experts making these huge decisions for the American people, or doctors explaining the disease on TV, speaking on how to boost the immune system? Here's why, Marcia. Here's what we've been told as alternative doctors. I've been told by my boards, I've been told by the upper powers that if we talk about treating, curing, mitigating COVID-19 with nutrition, then we'll be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Now, that comes from higher up. That comes from the CDC. That comes from the WHO. Why? I don't know. I can't explain. All I can say is that a lot of the doctors, the so-called doctors that are kind of in the, we'll say, the lead roles, most of them are politicians and not doctors. They are doctors, but they're politicians first. And politicians don't tend to make decisions always in the best interest of the people, even though that people elected them there to make the best decisions for the people. It just, you know how politics works. I don't think we have to have a political talk for everybody to understand that politicians generally are liars, thieves, and thieves, or liars, thieves, and cheats, and generally are out for their own interest and personal gain at the cost of the people that put them in office. And now I don't want to generalize for absolutely every single politician in the world, but that's a lot of what we're seeing. And I can't answer that question. I can't claim to speak their minds or know their minds. But I know that many of them are just not in it for the right reasons. Can a person do the tests that I have told them to take, or should we wait? If there's testing coming out from my office that we're recommending that you take, no, do them. Do them and get them done. There's no direct reason why you shouldn't, in my opinion. Let's see. My phyto multivitamins have 8 milligrams of zinc per caplet. Is that okay to maintain a healthy level? It depends, Linda. 8 milligrams of zinc is not a terrible amount. It's a decent amount. But if you're zinc deficient, you've all heard me probably use the analogy of spitting on a forest fire. If you're zinc deficient, that's not going to do a whole lot. Remember that we're talking about immune system, strengthening the immune system or supporting the immune system in a stronger way. We're talking about what's referred to as, there's a term, orthomolecular. What is that? Orthomolecular means right molecule. And generally, it refers to the practice of nutritional medicine, meaning you're using the right molecule to achieve the right effect. And so with orthomolecular dosing, is very important. In other words, the strength and the quantity matters. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to just go buy zinc, and they're getting 8 milligrams or 2 milligrams. But I can tell you the therapeutic dose of zinc starts at no less than 25 milligrams for an adult. So if you're getting 8 milligrams, and maybe you're eating another 5 milligrams or so from your diet, you're at a half of a therapeutic dose. So if you're trying to achieve a therapeutic dose, then the 8 milligrams in your multivitamin is not really going to do much. Sharon wants to know, how effective is hydroxychloroquine for RA? I think the better question isn't how effective is hydroxychloroquine for RA. I think the better question is, why in the heck would somebody take hydroxychloroquine for a disease where we know the trigger factors, and if you changed your diet and got your diet and your lifestyle dialed in, you wouldn't even need the hydroxychloroquine. Remember, the long-term side effects of these drugs, they can create blindness, they can create eye problems, they can create cardiotoxicity. Heart disease is the number one cause of death in the United States. We don't need any extra help getting there. And then they can cause neurotoxicity. And so it's not an issue of how effective is it for taking to treat a disease. It's more the issue, and I'm not trying to pick on you, but it's more an issue asking the question why you have the disease in the first place. Functional medicine, which is root cause resolution, which is what is the origin of the problem, and not what can I take to mitigate the symptoms so that I can continue to lie to myself about my current behaviors and why my current behaviors are contributing to that illness. Remember, all progress starts with the brutal truth, and that means the brutal truth to yourself. Don't lie to yourself by masking your symptoms with medicine to ensure that you can stay functional when in reality you may not make the meaningful changes that you need to make. Remember, pain is a great motivator, which is why I don't believe in medicating pain unless there's no other alternative or option. There are certain situations where medicating pain, terminal cancer patients is one of those examples, where medicate all you want, it's a quality of life issue. But when we have somebody who's masking their own personal pain so they can continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, that's not compassion. That's pseudo-compassion. And pseudo-compassion doesn't get anybody anywhere. Real growth starts with truth. So I'm going to get off that horse now, but hydroxychloroquine for RA is the wrong question to ask. When are we going to hear this from the media? Nadine wants to know. I don't know. If anybody, I'm a numbers guy, so anybody can look at the research and the numbers, and what we're seeing the same death rates. So if you look at death rates from last year and death rates this year, there aren't any big changes. And so, everybody's talking about how COVID is so dangerous and killing so many people, but the reality is a lot of diseases or a lot of deaths are being blamed on COVID, but it's not actually COVID that killed the person. The person had 3 or 4 or 5 other comorbidities along with it, and so it wasn't necessarily the COVID that killed them. They just happened to have COVID, but they also died of a heart attack. And so then they're calling it a COVID death. So the numbers are being artificially inflated. The busyness of the hospitals is being artificially reported in the media. NBC News was caught the other night lying about the hospitals in New York, and they were showing you pictures of hospitals in Italy and how busy they were, but they were actually talking about the hospitals in New York. And so I think there's a lot of this doesn't add up, and I don't really want to get into that because I don't think it serves our conversation, because I would just be speculating as much as many of you are sitting at home and with your spouses and your family members speculating, why this feels wrong, why there's something just not quite right about what we're being told and the information that we're being given. And I don't want to turn the show into a speculative arena. I want to give you information that you can take home tonight and feel more confident that if you apply the information, you're going to be in a better place tomorrow and getting through this. So, but I can't speak for the media and the politicians. Let's see here. Additional immunity ideas: get UVB sunlight. Okay, so that's a comment, I think, more than anything else. Yes, I've heard about food shortages, but there really aren't any food shortages. There are actually farmers burning food excesses. So I don't know that COVID per se has caused an actual food shortage. Let's see here. Autoimmune patients stay on chloroquine for years without side effects. Lupus, scleroderma. So autoimmune patients do stay on hydroxychloroquine for years or Plaquenil for years, but you're saying without side effects, and that's just not true. There are definitely side effects, and there's definitely a risk-benefit ratio using those medications. The issue, if it's a dire situation, what I'm not saying tonight is if you're on your deathbed in a hospital and hydroxychloroquine is what they're going to try to use on you, I'm not trying to tell you to, on your deathbed, to have an argument with your doctor. What I'm trying to tell you is there are a lot of people out there in the world tonight that are so scared of COVID-19 that they're doing things like asking to take hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine as a preventative. And so, again, listen to what I'm saying. Don't put words in my mouth either. I'm not saying that if you're dying that you should argue with your doctor. I'm saying that using this as a preventative, in my opinion, is a huge mistake that's going to create massive amounts of toxicity if it's allowed to happen. This is exactly why the presidential order to use hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine in the hospital is not for prevention. It's not for treatment of mild cases. So if you look at the laws on this, the current law as it is in effect is that this drug is only being approved right now for severe cases where it is life-threatening. But many people are going to their doctor and asking for the drug as a preventative. Understand that if you're using this as a preventative, the risk-benefit toxicity profile is too great, and it's a foolhardy thing to do for the sake of trying to prevent something that has already a relatively low mortality rate. I think you're trading the risk of potential neurotoxicity and blindness for the risk that you might get sick from COVID-19 and that you might potentially have a progressive case of COVID-19. Remember that COVID-19 is not as progressively dangerous as what the media is portraying it to be and what the numbers are actually panning out to show. And so again, using a drug that has a known high toxicity profile is a bad idea as a prevention agent. I'm not talking about if you're dying and this is the option that you're faced with making. I'm talking about as a preventative. Okay, let's see here. So when to take quercetin? I mean, you can take quercetin anytime. As far as being therapeutic with it, it's anywhere between 1 and up to as much as 10 grams a day. I don't really recommend those super high doses unless you're being monitored, but 1 to 2 grams a day is perfectly fine for quercetin. And perfectly safe for quercetin to use as a zinc ionophore to help that zinc get into the cell. But quercetin is also a very, very powerful antioxidant. So if we're talking about the antioxidant component of protection, it also kind of works as a dual agent. Let's see. Sharon wants to know if I have a supplement to help support thyroid. There's a lot. Sharon, the best thing I could recommend that you do is go back and watch. I did a video, and I'll probably repeat it in the future, but I did a video on nutrition needed for healthy thyroid function. And there are 17 different nutrients that your thyroid needs to be able to be produced and to be able to be maintained. And so go back and watch that video. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you head over to Glutenology on YouTube and type in thyroid help in the search engine, and you'll be able to pull that video up. No problem. Do organic coffee enemas increase your glutathione? No, they don't increase your glutathione directly. They might increase your glutathione indirectly because they stimulate you to produce bile, which then acts as a toxin binding agent in the GI tract, which preserves your internal glutathione. So they could potentially increase your glutathione indirectly, but not directly, at least not to my knowledge. Somebody may have research that proves me wrong, but to my knowledge, they don't increase your glutathione directly. Okay. Can magnesium supplementation increase your need for potassium? Yeah, I mean, you can overdo magnesium, but generally in the 600 to 1,000 milligram range, you're not going to. You're really safe in that regard. If zinc's making you nauseous, somebody's chiming in that zinc makes her nauseous, make sure you take it on a full meal. So eat a full meal and then take the zinc. If it still makes you nauseous, it may just not be a good fit for you. Not everybody tolerates it, or the pill dose may be too high. I've had very rare occasions where people couldn't tolerate 25 milligrams of zinc, so we had to put them on lower, more frequent but lower doses with food, so 10 milligram doses instead of 25 milligram doses. Keep going. Yes, when to tell. Okay. Oh, Nadine, you didn't stir up anything, so no offense. None of you are going to ever offend me with your questions or commentary. Not really. I mean, I know it's a trying time for all of you, and everybody's nervous and scared and just trying to get answers. And I may sometimes get a little bit. We'll just say I might sometimes go on a roll, but no offense taken. Wouldn't it? So Miriam wants to know, wouldn't it be helpful for more people to be tested in order to see if immunity is being achieved? That's the problem, Miriam. You're absolutely right. It would be helpful if we had more people being tested for COVID-19. But the big problem is we don't have antibody tests to measure that. There's no testing available. And that is the crux of the issue. The testing that's being rolled out right now is a testing. It's called PCR. PCR stands for polymerase chain reaction. And PCR testing measures for the DNA. It's actually they're measuring for the presence of the DNA, and then they amplify that to see if whether or not that's present. The problem with COVID-19 is that actually it hasn't fully been extrapolated. The DNA sequence of the virus itself has not been even fully extrapolated. So we're relying on technology to test for something that hasn't fully been extrapolated, and research shows there's a potential for as much as 80% false positive rate. So if we're basing our numbers on the current PCR methodology of testing, then we're going to have an artificially high norm of people who are coming down with COVID or who are being told they have COVID when they might not. And the implication for that is quite dangerous, because if you go get tested because you think you might have it and you get a false positive and now they quarantine you and they potentially take you out of your home, take you away from your family, what's that going to do to your health? Plus, there's the psychosomatic, psychological component to being told you have a disease that you don't actually have, and then your health can actually deteriorate due to the belief that you have it. So there's a whole gambit of problems with the testing right now, which is, why I think it's probably the best thing that you can do right now is to sit tight and take care of your own health and take care of your own families more than anything else. If you're on an iron supplement and you get COVID, should you still take your iron supplement? Depends. If you're severely anemic because you have iron deficiency anemia and that's been diagnosed and you're on that iron supplement for that reason, and then you come down with COVID, yes, you should continue to take your iron. Remember that not all cases of COVID progress to this severe case where you get red blood cell rupturing and iron release. That these are, the severe progressive cases aren't the norm. Most people are going through a normal kind of cold component. Yes, it's a little harder on the lungs. Yes, there can be some lung damage, but most people aren't being, incapacitated as a result of getting an infection. A lot of people, when they get it, are just recovering from it. So to stop or to start a supplement for or against because you have it, I would say is a case-by-case basis, and be a better question that maybe if your doctor prescribed you iron, maybe be a better question to communicate with them about. Let's see. Do you have melatonin? Yes, I do have melatonin, but you can also make melatonin by going outside. The best way to get melatonin is sunshine on your eyes. So go outside without sunglasses or UV protective agents. That's how we get it, is that sunlight hits our eyes and it converts or helps us to convert and create melatonin. Okay. Let's see here. Cheryl wants to know, how contagious is COVID-19 really? We really don't know. Here's what we do know. The size of the virus itself is so small that the masks don't do anything. So, I see a lot of people out there wearing masks. They're being told to wear masks, not so much to prevent getting the disease, but to prevent the spread. But the virus is so small, if you have a mask on, you're really not going to prevent it. It can pass right through that mask. I mean, that mask is like an open door compared to the size of that virus. And so I think a lot of people are, overdoing it with masks. Let's see here. How about ozone therapy? Dr. Rowan uses this and has a do-it-yourself video. I don't have any experience per se with ozone therapy, Ron, but I've had doctor colleagues of mine that are using it and making claims of it being very helpful. So in that regard, I just can't comment intelligently enough on ozone therapy or speak intelligently enough based on my experience with it. Dwayne wants to know good supplements to combat radiation exposure. Probably one of the best is iodine. Iodine is fantastic for radiation exposure. That and high doses of antioxidants, vitamin C, among other antioxidants, very good to help with radiation exposure. Polyphenols, plant-based compounds like quercetin, helpful for radiation exposure. Eating real food like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, you know, the reason they can survive the 100-degree weather in the sun, and that's solar radiation, right, is because of the plant polyphenols that protect their skin from deteriorating from the rays of the sun. And when you eat those things, you transfer those active plant-based ingredients into your body, and you also, too, get that same type of protection. Let's see here. What do I think about nebulators with hydrogen peroxide? I think that's probably a bad idea. I think if you're going to use a nebulizer to get something in you, use nebulizer and use glutathione. To do that, you need to contact your doctor and get a prescription for glutathione. But nebulized glutathione, there is good research that shows that it's very, very helpful for lung tissue, especially in acute respiratory and in chronic respiratory inflammatory situations. Okay, I think we covered most of it. And a lot of you are asking, well, Steve says, I saw a video saying that coronaviruses have a fat coating or an outer layer. All membrane-based organisms do. They have what's called a phospholipid bilayer or outer coating. So wouldn't high humidity help drastically? Not necessarily. High humidity is not really going to do much to a coating or a fatty outer layer, like steaming with eucalyptus oil. No, because it's not going to do a whole lot. Not really. Not high humidity. I mean, I live in Houston, and some of the areas that are most impacted by these viruses are the high humidity areas. Look at Louisiana, who's having, some of the higher case loads and some of the higher problematic loads. And they live in one of the most humid places in the United States. So high humidity is not really going to do a whole lot. I would say, if anything, what's going to do more is just is a healthy immune system overall. So going back to what we've been talking about for the last 2 months, remember, folks, the most important things that you can be doing right now, spending time with your family because you're in lockdown. So getting that personal time that you've been asking for, but now that you have it, don't know quite what to do with yourself. Turn off the TV. Make sure you go to bed on time, get good sleep. You should be eating real food right now. You should be drinking plenty of water. You should be getting sunshine. You should be maintaining your good exercise regimen or protocol. Those are the things that are going to help you get through this. Those are the things that are going to keep your immune system in top shape. There's no magic bullet. But if you want to be as preventative as you can be, you've got to take care of your body. So that being said, we're going to wrap it up. We'll see you again next week. Same time, 6 p.m. for another episode of Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. I'm releasing a special interview with Dr. Nevin on the toxicity of chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. And this guy is one of the world's leading researchers. He's an expert in the topic. And so we got that special research update coming out tomorrow for you. So stay tuned. We're going to be sending it your way. Have a great evening. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Hey, if you've got a functional medicine or health question that you'd like me to answer for you, make sure you send me an email, glutenology@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to create a video answer just for you. Have a great day.